like thing because I don't know what Columbus Day is in America. I really don't, and I just saw someone post just like, "I'll keep observing Columbus Day, thanks." And then someone's like, "What do you do to observe Columbus Day? Get lost in a grocery store looking for spices?"
Pretty much. Oh yeah, it's like the day Columbus found America. So yeah, we get a yeah like we could in 1492 Christopher Columbus got us a day off of school. That's basically all it is. Hello, Cameron. Bone jaw. Thank you. How are you doing today?
Oh,
Hello, people. I can't see the messages, but hi, it's me.
a question about the story I suggested.
Yes.
Ever wondered a world Cameraheads actually took off and became like this big thing akin to Slenderman or the SCP Foundation?
That'd be
Yeah.
interesting.
Like one of the biggest what ifs in our world. I mean, it was on the paranormal boards, just like the SCP Foundation. So, like in for all intents and purposes, this could have been like a big thing. It
Could
wasn't.
have. Yeah.
So it's like how
Like it's
like if
just
you got into the what if machine, and then all of a sudden it was like SCP didn't take off, but camera heads did.
Yeah.
yes, I can just see it now. I
How about a world without fucking
had
Jeff
fan
the
fictions,
Killer?
Camerahead spin-offs, a Camerahead movie made like, a bunch of years after it was popular. Sony, uh,
Yeah. I
Camerahead
was.
Thunderman crossovers.
You beat me to it. I was going to be like
Sky's the limits, I tell you.
a movie years after its popularity was gone. Who would do something like that? Sony just sitting in the corner looking ashamed.
It's like Sony is like the equivalent of like 9gag memes in 2017 or something like that.
Actually, that reminds me of watching Sonic.exe remake. They like I was like, oh yeah, all these outdated memes. It's like Steph's right here in the room with us.
Boyle,
Steph.
whoop, bombs. You want it? Yours, my boy. As long as you have enough rupee.
I'm all right. I'll be going through that work I mentioned earlier while I listen. This should be fun. All right. Glad you're doing well. I hope work isn't too much of a hassle. And I don't even remember what it was, but Gemma, you're just like high five, and I was like, Gemma, this is not a high five moment.
I can't remember what it was as well, but I remember some of that evening where we recorded one of the episodes of the remake when we were drinking, because I remember we were drinking a lot throughout the day because it was like I think we had like a barbecue, and then there was like and then people came over and we had drinks with them for a while, and then Toby and Matt came over, and then we drank more.
Excellent.
So it was like a 12-hour day thing, I think.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it was good. The thing is, I was listening to them recently because that's why I found out that that's where Jacob called me Edna Krabappel, um, with my laugh, and I was listening back to them, and we'd done them quite close together for some of them, like, and there was talks of us doing like, oh well, we'll do another stream tomorrow, and then we'll do another one on Saturday, and I was like, oh yeah, back when I used to be see my friends multiple times a week.
Oh,
And it's just like, ah, those were the days.
hello,
It's
Mike.
been so long. Been so long ago.
I know. It's okay. You'll see them soon, right?
Yeah, I hope so. Like, I mean, I saw Toby last week, with my friend V, who you might have seen on the channel. He was in the Dead Walk as the main character. We hung out last week, and that was nice. But it was still outside at a pub, and it was raining and thunder and lightning.
Oh,
As soon as I was ready to go out, I just heard this big crash of thunder and lightning strikes, and I was like,
Jesus.
"Why do you hate me?"
Yeah, Mike just says sad Gemma hours.
I'm just like, yeah, this is me. But I should be seeing Toby and Matt soon, like properly, probably in the next week or so.
Excellent.
Week, 2 weeks. And then I'm hoping to see my mum and dad for the first time in like 18 months. But they've had some issues getting home.
Yep. Yeah, you mentioned that yesterday. I won't say anything specific for, uh, the sake of,
Like
you know,
privacy and that, yeah.
well, that and the stream not getting taken down or anything. But,
Yeah, I was not. I was very annoyed about what the situation was about.
yeah. Just wait to see what people get in here. Oh, excuse me.
Here's something. In Flowrider's song Low, he states that Shotty is wearing the apple bottom jeans, the boots with the fur, and the Reeboks with the straps. What is she, some kind of four-legged morph woman? In all honesty, I'm not surprised the whole club was looking at her.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right, where is everyone? Like, say we take the same attitude from yesterday. Blame Doug. Yeah, I told everyone that,
Doug.
yeah, because Kay couldn't stream yesterday, I said, I blame Doug Walker, and all of you should too. So we
I
went,
always blame Bill Walker.
yeah, we just went hashtag blame Doug.
Nice. I'm completely on board with that.
Where is everyone? I sent out the link, Discord, and to a couple people privately.
How many people are here?
Um, it's Mike and Cameron.
Ah. Yeah.
Me.
But you don't count because you're in the stream. Everyone get in here, or Doug Walker will tell your parents that you didn't do your homework. Thank you, Raptor.
Nice.
Doug Walker, the source of all the world's evils. Yeah, it's not like Hitler or Genghis Khan or anything like that. It's fucking Doug Walker.
Yeah, I was
Dog. Butler.
I was watching a video yesterday which was about it wasn't about Doug, but about someone equally as cringy, and it was about Quentin reviews. Like the guy that was like the guy was like, I just wanna say I fucking hate Trump in like
Here's
just
the
the middle of
thing.
a review.
I freaking hate Trump. But anyway,
That's
back to my review on the
really fun.
Donuts VHS series.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
It was just like right in the middle of a review about a Logan Paul movie. I was just like, okay, that's fine. It's like, it's like this was awkward. But yeah, the video was basically about like how he just kind of he kind of like betrayed all of his friends, like internet historian and a bunch of other people, and
Yeah.
decided to try and hang out with like Lindsay Ellis, and he became like the new movie Bob. Because he was like simping after a couple people on what they call BreadTube.
Or like winch tube.
Yeah, pretty much. And then I decided I was like, because I went on to because he used to do like a series called like Fallen Titans, where he would talk about certain creators or like people's channels that sort of like just disappeared or something happened to them, like Grade A Under A and stuff. And then he did one on Filthy Frank, and I'm like, he wasn't really a fallen titan. He went on to do bigger and better things, and he's now like an award-winning musical artist.
Yeah.
It's like, fallen titan? What do you mean?
No, he ascended.
Yes, it's like he ascended to some sort of like ethereal plane where he will not be touched.
Guys, don't talk about this Filthy Frank, guys. Don't you know that he's racist, guys?
Yeah,
This is Quentin Reviews with my big brain takes here to say that Filthy Frank is bad, and if you like Filthy Frank, then you are bad. It's just like drugs. If you do drugs, then you are bad, because drugs are bad. That is my argument. Remember to like and subscribe. Give me money so I can give it to Lindsay Ellis. Please, I just need to see her.
Okay.
and then she started. He's like talking about how like ContraPoints is his dark queen, and I'm like, oh no.
Cringe dog never invaded Poland, therefore Hitler has a leg
Down
up on him.
bad.
I don't know, Mike. What's worse, the Poland invasion or Kikassia?
Kikassia.
And Stream immediately loses any chance of being monetized. To be fair, if I was talking about a Logan Paul movie, I would do anything to stop talking about it. Quentin made a really cringy video about VidCon. Deadwing did a good stream on it. Some drugs are
Oh, yeah.
okay, but don't sniff petrol from a can. Imagine simping for Lindsay Ellis.
I like yeah, she apparently got cancelled recently for saying something about the Caillou and the Last Dragon film.
Oh yeah.
A film that I'll never ever see.
She made a long video about being white food is bad. And it is bad. She's from RedTube, so good opinion.
Why was invading Poland a bad thing, Manny? Okay, that's a fair point. It's like that meme that Cobe showed me. Having a great day. Remember, Poland still exists. All right,
They'd
well,
be so fine. Boom. Once.
anyway, let's get started here. Hopefully, some people will just kind of make their way in.
Yeah.
So we're going to be starting today with the story Cameraheads, as requested by Raptor. So, Raptor, you want to take us away for that one?
Okay. The Camerahead. I was walking home through a nearby gully and came across a weird stack of rocks and a torn envelope with some writing on it. It could have been written in charcoal or ash. It said, "Kill the Camerahead." On the next and on the last line, help if I don't come back. There was a mini DV nearby. This was all on it besides static. So I had to watch it a few times before I found the clip. Took the video. Camerahead sounds really silly if it's a monster with a camera for a head. It's Cameraheads.
And we actually have the video here. Good at this.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute myself, watch the video separately, because of the fact that I can't see. So, yeah, I'll just try and play it, like, sync it up with you.
Oh, it's over already.
Like, wow, that was a great video.
Yeah.
What happened for the like the audio description people?
It was literally just static.
Ah,
It's like the story's nothing amazing, but it's just like a fun little thing, and it doesn't take itself seriously. Or like it doesn't take itself too seriously. Like, oh my god, you guys, this is the scariest thing ever.
yeah. So it's not like, oh my god, you guys, this is like, I this video of this guy walking down the street is like really frightening. Come and watch it.
I'm interested in the story just because for the obvious what if factor. Like if the story actually took off, it became big, like Slender Man.
Damn big, like my penis.
Ha, you get it. Get jokes.
I'm sorry.
I get it. I don't get it.
I was gonna say, Raptor, you taking a Gemma's act there. I get it. I get jokes.
Yeah.
This is just a ripoff of Slender Man / sarcasm. Yeah, that was the whole story. Just something very short and sweet.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like, not too much not it's like it wasn't like bloated and full of like description. It was just like, this is it.
I found this
This
mini
is scary.
TV. I took it home to watch, but then I decided to order a pizza from Domino's, a medium pizza with mushrooms and peppers. Then I figured I'd watch a movie on Netflix. Maybe The Dark Knight. Shut the fuck up, JC.
I've forgotten how much we just went and
Continue on.
absolutely
I
ripped
just want to
that.
read this one post by the Cameraheads from 4chan.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah.
In urban folklore, Camerahead represents a malevolent creature of human design. Firstly, a Geico-esque or biotechnological descriptions accompany first-hand accounts. The most expert on the subject that brought the subject to light was a barely coherent story about a boy finding a note saying, "I killed a Camerahead."
Oh.
Nice.
An actual slaying. He was, in fact, unwillingly making a meta-textual reference to himself as his post killed the Camerahead's viability and popularity. A photograph of a Camerahead was in subsequent threads attested by some. It apparently depicted an organic creature with a head atop an alien-like figure, menacing over some red light of some cowering elderly couple. And that was the post.
Is Camberhead like Rudy's enemy?
I have no idea.
It kind of reminded me of Woody when I first saw it.
Yeah, it was just like
A biomechanical creature with the head of some common household product on the top of it. Who knows?
You've heard of Camerahead. Now
Maybe they're
get ready
related
for
in some ways.
now get ready for microphone foot. So okay, Raptor, I'm gonna try not to come down on you too hard here. Did you say Geiger-esque?
It's not pronounced as Geiger.
Giger.
it's
Oh.
Geeker.
Yeah, HR Giger.
It's because it's
Good.
Dutch.
Yes. You've heard of
Foreign languages.
You've heard of Camerahead. Now get ready for Siren. Wait.
Okay. In theory, my head is actually an early version of Siren Head.
It's like, you've heard it, Camerahead. Now get ready for butt radio.
God damn it. Thank you, Gemma. Okay. All right. So, shall we get started with the next one?
Yes.
All right.
So, what were you going to say? Sorry.
I was just gonna say the next story is Bedtime, which Gemma recommended that I put on the list for voting, but I have
Hmm.
actually never read before.
Yeah, I will say that I haven't read Bedtime since about 2014. I just remember seeing it on a list of at the time when you know, because back in 2014 I was watching Bad Creepypasta, and I'd came across some, like, obviously all the kind of really good ones like Candle Cove and Psychosis and stuff, and Bedtime was on the list of like the one of the good ones. And I remember I remember it being quite unsettling. So I'm hoping that my my sort of like self from 7 years ago was correct.
Nice. So I was listening to a bad creepypasta. You fangirl.
I was a fan back in 2014.
I know. So was I. I'm making a joke. Actually, yes, it was spring of 2014 when I started watching.
Yeah, I think it was around like sort of it was around the time where Squidward Suicided had just came out, I think, when I started watching. So it was around that point in time.
I know
Whenever
I
that was.
I know I told this story before, but I started watching because I went on DeviantArt. Yes, my shame. But like it was like recommended for you. It was like a drawing of like Jeff the Killer, like a front view, and it was split down the middle. Like on the left half was him as normal boy, on the right side was like him as dumb killer, and like the boy part looks at it, he's like, I didn't mean to. Then the killer side is smiling. He's like, kill everybody. And I was like, what the fuck is this shit? Why is this being recommended to me? It's like, was it Jeff the Killer? And I read it, and I was like, what? This is the dumbest thing I've ever read. So I just typed into Google, Jeff the Killer is retarded, and the video was the first one to come up. And I've been watching it ever since.
Yeah, I was like, I came across a really weird one. I don't know why it was recommended in my recommended, but it was Soul Eater Bad Blood, and I'm like, I was like, all right, that's, and then I remember telling Jacob that, and he's like, that's the one you came across, and you still wanted to watch the show after that one. I was like, yeah, because I'd seen the show, so I kind of understood what
I
was kind of
didn't
going
mean
on.
to.
Wait, what?
Because I'd seen the Soul Eater, so I kind of understood what was going on.
Yeah. No, after what did you say?
Oh.
Just be like, I didn't mean to. And the evil Jeff be like, bombard my classmates with racial slurs.
If I was a fan of something in 2014, it's probably not very good. I can't remember anything I was a fan of in 2014. Well, that's fair, but I mean, you're also quite a bit younger than us.
Yeah, in
Generals.
2014, I was 21. So, I mean, still
Uh,
kind of.
I
I was
was
nearly. So you were older than 21.
I was 27.
So you're my age now.
Shut up.
Well, to be fair, I'm 28 this year, so.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah. The 5 days before that, I'm 35.
Eh, 35 is nothing.
Phyllis of all people was what led me to creepypasta. Lol. Although I had read Pen Pal.
Yeah, Pen Pal I read about 2014 as well, actually.
Okay, so anyway, bedtime. Bedtime is supposed to be a happy event for a tired child. For me, it was terrifying. While some children might complain about being put to bed before they had finished watching a film or playing their favorite video game, when I was a child, nighttime was something to truly fear. somewhere in the back of my mind, it still is. Someone who's trained in the sciences, I cannot prove that what happened to me was objectively real, but I can swear that what I experienced was genuine horror, a fear which in my life, I'm glad to say, has never been equaled. I will relate it to you all now as best I can. Make of it what you will, but I'll be glad to just get it off of my chest. I can't remember exactly when it started, but my apprehension towards falling asleep seemed to correspond with my being moved into a room of my own. I was 8 years old at the time, and until then I had shared a room, quite happily, with my older brother. As is perfectly understandable for a boy 5 years my senior, my brother eventually wished for a room of his own, and as a result, I was given the room at the back of the house. It was a small, narrow, yet oddly elongated room, large enough for a bed and a couple of chest of drawers, but not much else. I couldn't really complain because, even at that age, I understood that we did not have a large house, and I had no real cause to be disappointed, as my family was both loving and caring. It was a happy childhood during the day. The solitary window looked out onto our back garden, nothing out of the ordinary, but even during the day, the light which crept into that room seemed almost hesitant. As my brother was given a new bed, I was given the bunk beds which we used to share. While I was upset about sleeping on my own, I was excited at the thought of being able to sleep in the top bunk, which seemed far more adventurous to me. John?
From the very first night, I remember a strange feeling of unease creeping slowly from the back of my mind. I lay on the top bunk, staring down at my action figures and cars strewn across the green-blue carpet. As imaginary battles and adventures took place between the toys on the floor, I couldn't help but feel that my eyes were being slowly drawn towards the bottom bunk, as if something was moving in the corner of my eye, something which did not wish to be seen. The bunk was empty, impeccably made with a dark blue blanket tucked in neatly, partially covering two rather bland white pillows. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I was a child, and the noise slipping under my door from my parents' television bathed me in a warm sense of safety and well-being. I fell asleep. When you awaken from a deep sleep to something moving or stirring, it can take a few moments for you to truly understand what is happening. The fog of sleep hangs over your eyes and ears even when lucid. Something was moving. There was no doubt about that. At first, I wasn't sure what it was. Everything was dark, almost pitch black, but there was enough light creeping in from outside to outline that narrowly suffocating room. Two thoughts appeared in my mind almost simultaneously. The first was that my parents were in bed because the rest of the house lay both in darkness and silence. The second thought turned to the noise, a noise which had obviously woken me. As the last cobwebs of sleep withered from my mind, the noise took on a more familiar form. Sometimes the simplest of sounds can be the most unnerving. Cold wind whistling through a tree outside, a neighbour's footsteps uncomfortably close, or in this case, the simple sound of bed sheets rustling in the dark.
After?
Um, yeah, I was not paying attention.
That was it.
That, what that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. Sheets rustling in the dark, as if some disturbed sleeper was attempting to get out too comfortable in the bottom bunk. Lay there in disbelief, thinking that the noise was either my imagination, or perhaps my pet cat was finding somewhere comfortable to spend the night. It was then that I noticed my door shut as it had been outside. Or perhaps my mom had checked in on me, and the cat had sneaked in the room then. Yes, that must have been it. I turned to face the wall, closing my eyes in the vain hope that I could fall back to sleep. As I moved, the rustling noise from underneath me ceased. I thought that must have disturbed my cat, but I quickly realized that the visit in the bottom bunk was much less mundane than my pet cat trying to sleep, and much more sinister. As if alerted to my presence and disgruntled by my presence, the disturbed sleeper began to toss and turn violently, like a child having a temper tantrum in their bed. I could hear the sheets twist and turn with increasing ferocity. Fear then gripped me, not like the subtle sense of unease I had experienced earlier, but now more potent and terrifying. My heart raced as my eyes panicked, scanning the almost impenetrable darkness. I let out a cry.
As most young boys do, I instinctively shouted to my mother. I could hear something stir on the other side of the house, but as I began to breathe a sigh of relief that my parents were coming to save me, the bunk bed suddenly started to shake violently, as if gripped by an earthquake, scraping against the wall. I could hear the sheets below me thrashing around as if tormented by malice. I did not want to jump down to safety, as I feared the thing in the bottom bunk would reach out and grab me, pulling me into the darkness. So I stayed there, white knuckles clutching my own blanket like a shroud of protection. The wait seemed like an eternity. The door finally, and thankfully, burst open, and I lay bathed in light while the bottom bunk, the resting place of my unwanted visitor, lay empty and peaceful. I cried out, and my mother consoled me. Tears of fear, followed by relief, streamed down my face. Yet, through all the horror and relief, I did not tell her why I was so upset. I cannot explain it, but it was as though whatever had been in that bunk would return if I even so much as spoke of it, or uttered a single syllable of its existence. Whether that was the truth, I do not know, but as a child I felt as if that unseen menace remained close, listening. My mother laid in the empty bunk, promising to stay there until morning. Eventually my anxiety diminished, tiredness pushed me back towards sleep, but I remained restless, waking several times momentarily to the sound of rustling bed sheets. I remember the next day wanting to go anywhere, be anywhere, but in that narrow, suffocating room. It was a Saturday, and I played outside, quite happily with my friends. Although our house was not large, we were lucky to have a long, sloping garden in the back. We played there often, as much of it was overgrown and we could hide in the bushes, climbing the huge sycamore tree which towered above all else, and easily imagine ourselves in the throes of a grand adventure in some untamed exotic land. As fun as it all was, occasionally my eye would turn to that small window, ordinary, slight, and innocuous. But for me, that thin boundary looking, was a looking glass into a strange, cold pocket of dread. Outside, the lush green surroundings of our garden, filled with the smiling faces of my friends, could not extinguish the claws, creeping feeling clawing its way up my spine, each hair standing on end. The feeling of something in that room, something watching me play, waiting for the night when I would be alone, eagerly filled with hate.
It may sound strange to you, but by the time my parents ushered me back into that room for the night, I said nothing. I didn't protest. I didn't even make an excuse as to why I couldn't sleep there. I simply and sullenly walked into the room, climbed the few steps into the top bunk, and then waited. As an adult, I would be telling everyone about my experience, but even at that age, I felt almost silly to be talking about something which I had really no evidence for. I would be lying, however, if I said that this was my primary reason. I still felt that the thing would be enraged if I so much as spoke of it. It's funny how certain words can remain hidden from your mind, no matter how blatant or obvious they are. One word came to me that second night, lying there in the darkness alone, frightened, aware of a rotten change in the atmosphere, a thickening of the air as if something had displaced it. As I heard the first casual twists of the bed sheets below, the first anxious increase of my heartbeat at the realization that something was once again in the bottom bunk, that word, a word which had been sent into exile, filtered up through my consciousness, breaking free of all repression, gasping for air, screaming, etching and carving itself into my mind. Ghost. As this thought came to me, I noticed that my unwelcome visitor had ceased moving. The bedsheets lay calm and dormant, but they had been replaced by something far more hideous. A slow, rhythmic, rasping breath heaved and escaped from the thing below. I could imagine its chest rising and falling with each sordid, wheezing, and garbled breath. I shuddered and hoped beyond all hope that it would leave me without occurrence. The house lay as it had the previous night, a thick blanket of darkness. Silence prevailed, all but for the perverted breath of my as yet unseen bunkmate. I lay there terrified. I just wanted this thing to go, to leave me alone. What did it want? Then something unmistakably chilling transpired. It moved. It moved in a way different from before. When it threw itself around in the bottom bunk, it seemed unrestrained, without purpose, almost animalistic. This movement, however, was driven by awareness, with purpose, with a goal in mind. For that thing lying there in the darkness, that thing which seemed intent on terrorizing a young boy, calmly and nonchalantly sat up. Its laboured breathing had become louder, as now only a mattress and a few flimsy wooden slats separated my body from the unearthly breath below. I lay there, my eyes filled with tears, a fear which mere words cannot relate to you or anyone else coursing through my veins. I would not have believed that this fear could have been heightened, but I was so wrong. I imagined what this thing would look like, sitting there listening from below my mattress, hoping to catch the slightest hint that I was awake. Imagination that turned to an unnerving reality. I began to touch the wooden slats with which my mattress sat on. It seemed to caress them carefully, running what I imagined to be fingers and hands across the surface of the wood.
Time, dudes. Should have this.
It's like
Anyways,
the next line. Then with great force.
then with great force, he poured it angrily between the two slats into the mattress. Even the padding, it was as though someone had driven something into my side. Let out an almighty cry, and the reason, shaking and moving thing in the bunk below replied kind by violently vibrating the bunk as it had done the night before. Small flakes of paint powdered onto my blanket from the wall, as the frame of the bed scraped along its backwards and forwards, swaying side to side. Come on, let's do the Mario. Once again, I was bathed in light, and I stood there, my mother loving and caring, as she always was, with a comforting hug, and in common words, she subdued my hysteria. Of course, she asked what was wrong, but I could not say, I dare not say. I said one word over and over again. Nightmare. The card game. I am funny. Okay, with this dramatic reading, I am being funny. You will laugh. This is a hostile takeover of for weeks, if not months, night after night. I would awaken to the sound of rustling sheets each time. I would scream as so as not to provide this abomination with time to prod and feel for me. With each cry, the bed would shake violently, stopping with the arrival of my mother, which spent the rest of the night in the bottom bunk, seemingly unaware of the sinister force torturing her son nightly. Along the way, I managed to feign illness a few times and would come up with a few other less than truthful reasons for sleeping in my parents' bed. But more often than not, I would be alone for the first few nights of each night. I mean, hours of each night in that place. The room where the light outside did not sit right, alone with that thing.
With time, you can become desensitized to almost anything, no matter how horrific. I come to realize that, for whatever reason, this thing could not harm me when my mother was present. I am sure the same would have been said for my father, as loving as he was. Waking him from sleep was almost impossible. After a few months, I had grown accustomed to my nightly visitor. Do not mistake this for some unearthly friendship. I detested the thing. I still feared it greatly, as I could almost sense its desires and its personality, if you can call it that. One filled with perverted and twisted hatred, yet longing for me, of perhaps all things. My greatest fears were realized in the winter. Days grew short, and the longer nights merely provided this wretch with more opportunities. It was a difficult time for my family. My grandmother, a wonderfully kind and gentle woman, had deteriorated greatly since the death of my grandfather. My mother was trying her best to keep her in the community as long as possible. However, dementia is a cruel and degenerative illness, robbing a person of their memories one day at a time. Soon she recognized none of us, and it became clear that she would need to be moved from her house to a nursing home. Before she could be moved, my grandmother had a particularly difficult few nights. My mother decided that she would stay with her. As much as I loved my grandmother, I felt nothing but anguish at her illness. To this day, I feel guilty that my first thoughts were not of her, but what my nightly visitor may do should it become aware of my mother's absence, her presence being the one thing which I was sure was protecting me from the full horror of this thing's reach. I rushed home from school that day and immediately wrenched the bed sheets and mattress from the lower bunk, moving all the slats and placing an old desk, chest of drawers, and some chairs which we kept in the cupboard where the bottom bunk used to be. I told my father I was making an office, which he found adorable, but I would be damned if I'd give that thing a place to sleep for one more night.
As darkness approached, I lay there knowing my mother was not in the house. I did not know what to do. My only impulse was to sneak into her jewelry box and take a small family crucifix which I had seen there before. While my family were not very religious, at that age I still believed in God and hoped that somehow this would protect me. Although fearful and anxious, while gripping the crucifix under my pillow tightly in one hand, sleep eventually came as I drifted off to dream. I hoped that I would awaken in the morning without incidents. Unfortunately, that night was the most terrifying of all. I woke gradually. The room was once again dark. As my eyes adjusted, I could gradually make out the window and the door, and the walls, some toys on the shelf, and even to this day I shudder to think of it, for there was no noise, no rustling of the sheets, no movement at all. The room felt lifeless, lifeless yet not empty. The nightly visitor, that unwelcome, wheezing, hate-filled thing which had terrorized me night after night, was not in the bottom bunk. It was in my bed. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. Utter terror had shaken this very sound from my voice. I lay motionless. If I could not scream, I did not want to let it know I was awake. I had not yet seen it. I could only feel it. It was obscured under my blanket. I could see its outline, and I could feel its presence, but I dared not look. The weight of it pressed down on top of me, a sensation I will never forget. When I say that hours passed, I do not exaggerate. Laying there motionless in the darkness, I was every bit a scared and frightened young boy. If it had been during the summer months, it would have been light by then, but the grasp of winter is long and unrelenting, and I knew it would be hours before sunrise, the sunrise which I yearned for. I was a timid child by nature, but I reached a breaking point, a moment where I could wait no more, where I could survive under this intimately deviant abomination no longer. Fear can sometimes wear you out, make you threadbare, a shell of nerves leaving only the slightest trace of you behind. I had to get out of that bed. Then I remembered the crucifix. My hand still lay under the pillow, but it was empty. I slowly moved my wrist around to find it, minimizing as best I could the sound and vibrations caused, but it could not be found. I had either knocked it off the top bunk, or it had, I could not even bear to think of it, been taken from my hand. Without the crucifix, I lost any sense of hope. Even at such a young age, you can be acutely aware of what death is, and intensely frightened of it. I knew I was going to die in that bed if I lay there, dormant, passive, doing nothing. I had to leave that room behind, but how? Should I leap from the bed and hope that I make it to the door? What if it's faster than me? Or should I slowly slip out of that top bunk, hoping to not disturb my uncanny bedfellow?
And that it had not stood since when I moved and to find the crucifix. I began to have the strangest of thoughts. It was asleep. No, I hadn't so much as breathed since I had woken it up. I'm not woken up. Perhaps it was Weston believing that I had finally got me, that I was finally in its grasp, or perhaps it was torn with me. After all, it had been doing just that for countless nights, and now it was with me under it, pinned against my mattress, with no mother to protect me. Maybe it was holding off, savoring its victory until the last possible moment, like a wild animal savoring its prey. I tried to breathe as shallowly as possible, and mustering every ounce of courage I could, I reached over slowly with my right hand and began to peel the blanket off of me. What I found under those covers almost stopped my heart. I did not see it, but as my hand moved the blanket, it brushed against something cold and smooth, something which was unmistakably like a gaunt hand. I held my breath in terror, as I sure it must have now known that I was awake. Nothing. That was my Velcroft, right?
Did not stir. Felt dead. After a few moments, I placed my hand carefully further down the blanket, felt a thin, poorly formed forearm. My confidence and almost twisted sense of curiosity grew as I moved down further to a disproportionately larger bicep muscle. The arm was outstretched, lying across my chest, with the hand resting on my left shoulder, as if it had grabbed me in my sleep. I realized that I would have to leave this cadaverous appendage, not even so much as hope to escape its grasp. For some reason, the feeling of torn, ragged clothing on the shoulder of this nighttime invader stopped me in my tracks. Fear once again swelled in my stomach and in my chest as I recoiled my hand in disgust at the touch of a straggled, oily hair. I could not bring myself to touch its face, although I wondered to this very day what it would have felt like. Dear God, it moved. It was subtle, but its grip on my shoulder and across my body strengthened. No tears came, but God, how I wanted to cry. As its hand and arm slowly coiled round me, my right leg brushed against the cool wall which the bed lay against. Of all that happened to me in that room, this was the strangest. I realized that this clutching, rancid thing, which drew great delight from violating a young boy's bed, was not entirely on top of me. It was sticking out from the wall, like a spider striking from its lair. Suddenly, its grip uh, moved from a slow tightening to a sudden squeeze. It pulled and clawed at my clothes, as if frightened that the opportunity would soon pass. I fought against it, but its emaciated arm was too strong for me. Its head rose up, writhing and contorting under the blanket. I now realized where it was taking me, into the wall. I fought for my dear life. I cried out, and suddenly my voice returned to me, yelling, screaming, but no one came. Then I realized why it was so eager to suddenly strike, why this thing had to have me now. Through my window, that window which seemed to represent so much malice from outside, streaked hope. The first rays of sunshine. I struggled further, knowing that if I could just hold on, it would soon be gone. As I fought for my life, the unearthly parasite shifted, slowly pulling itself up to my chest, its head now poking out from under the blanket, wheezing, coughing, rasping. I do not remember its features. I simply remember its breath against my face, foul and cold as ice.
As the sun broke over the horizon, that dark place, that suffocating room of contempt, was bathed in sunlight. I passed out as its scrawny fingers encircled my neck, squeezing the very life from me. I awoke to my father offering to make me some breakfast, a wonderful sight indeed. I had survived the most horrible experience of my life until then, and now I moved the bed away from the wall, leaving behind the furniture I had believed would stop that thing from taking a bed. Little did I think that it would try to take mine and me. Weeks passed without incidents, yet on one cold, frost-bitten night I awoke to the sound of the furniture where the bunk beds used to be, vibrating violently. In a moment it passed, and I lay there sure I could hear a distant wheezing coming from deep within the wall, finally fading into the distance. I have never told anyone this story before. To this day I still break out in a cold sweat at the sound of bedsheets rustling in the night, or a wheeze brought on by the common cold, and I certainly never slept with my bed against a wall. Call it superstition if you will, but as I said, I cannot discount conventional explanations such as sleep paralysis, hallucination, or that of an overactive imagination. But what I can say is this. The following year I was given a larger room on the other side of the house, and my parents took the strangely suffocating, elongated place as their bedroom. They said they didn't need a large room, just one big enough for bed and a few things. They lasted 10 days. We moved on the 11th.
All right, and that's the end.
Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
I'm sorry for my performance. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, no worries.
I could have done better.
You can probably do it
It's
another
alright.
time.
Yeah. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was as good as I remembered, which is good.
Yeah, that's good.
It's like, what did you think, Raptor?
Pretty good.
Cool.
How the monster wasn't really in your face the whole time. It was more subtle. Going through these days.
Yeah, it's I liked the fact that there was not like you it was not like that he could see the full thing. It was very much like something that was sort of unimaginable, which I like.
Yeah, that was definitely a nice touch. All right, well, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys in the chat did too. And I think
Yes.
we'll call it there for the night, and
Yeah.
be back tomorrow for Empress Teresa. So I'll see you guys then. Same bean time, same bean channel.